And I'm trying to embrace the fact that I am in between, and that's okay, because being a transracial adoptee is an identity in itself. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new, my name is Lily and I'm a Chinese transracial adoptee. Every Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday, I post videos about my experiences as a transracial adoptee. So if that's something you're interested in, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let's get into the video. Hey everyone, welcome back. It is a peaceful Saturday for me. I have the apartment to myself and Grant's nails are still not clipped, so you'll be hearing him walk around. But yeah, it's just been a very tumultuous few weeks with things happening in the world and also things happening in my own life and with my family and friends. And I honestly wasn't that motivated to sit down and film today. But if any of you know me, then you know that when I have a plan to do something, I force myself to do it, so that way I can stay on schedule and keep creating content for you. So I am here today summoning all of my energy. I have a latte and I am going to do the best that I can talking about this topic. This is going to be the feeling in between episode, and I kind of alluded to that in the episode from last week about owning your identity. So feeling in between, I'm sure that adoptees, transracial or not, feel this. But because I am a Chinese transracial adoptee, I'm going to speak from the transracial adoption lens. And being in between was very hard growing up. And there are so many ways people can feel in between. It's not just with adoption, it's just the intersections of life. People are multidimensional and they're going to feel in between in many different ways. For me, it was always between races. So I was being raised by a white family. I felt very white. And then I realized when I was going to school and I was going out, people did not see me as white. And as a child, that didn't really make sense to me. And I was really struggling with how to, alluding back to the other episode, own my identity and really take pride in who I was. Because I was constantly in this in-between place, and I was constantly having people tell me what I was and what I wasn't. And by that I mean, like, as early as elementary school, I had the few fellow Chinese students in my class, constantly telling me that I'm not Chinese. I don't speak the language, I don't eat the food, I don't go home to Chinese parents. But then I had my white friends who were like, so Lily, what are you? Like, literally, the question was, what are you? And I knew immediately that was alluding to race. And I was like, I'm not really sure. When you're in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, like you see differences, you see color, but unless that's really talked about and you are educated on race, like, it doesn't make sense when somebody asks, what are you? And so I always knew that I was Chinese. I knew I was from China, but I didn't really understand how that related to being Asian. I was constantly in between, and I was constantly code switching and trying to find my place in both worlds. And I really just wanted to fit into one. I didn't want to be in between. People are interesting because they're different. Like, if you're all the same, it's so boring. And so nobody wanted to point out how we were similar. It was just like, no, you're different, you're different, you're different. And I was like, well, I don't seem to fit in anywhere, so maybe I just don't belong anywhere. But that's not true. And I'm sure there were many ways that I was very similar to the other students in my class and my friends, but we weren't really focusing on that. Like, that wasn't what we cared about. We had similar interests and stuff, but when it came to like physical features and race, like students would focus on the differences. And I think part of that is just natural curiosity of children. I know that there were some students who were being taught more offensive behaviors at home and bringing that to the classroom. But for the most part, it was just, oh, hey, like, you look different from me. Can you tell me why? But with my story, I wasn't really comfortable giving my entire background. Like, for some reason, I couldn't just say, yeah, I'm Chinese. Because again, I didn't feel Chinese. It was like, oh, if somebody asked me that question, then I need to say, well, I was born in China, but then I was adopted, so my parents don't look like me, and that's that. As I've gotten older, I have really tried to embrace the in-between part of me. And I mean, I still struggle with it. But now I'm at this point where I'm really just in this advocacy space and in this transracial adoption space. And I'm trying to embrace the fact that I am in between. And that's okay, because being a transracial adoptee is an identity in itself. And it can be very confusing. It can be embarrassing. It can be awkward, because now that I'm older, I am out in the world on my own, and everybody expects me to be their stereotype of a Chinese person, and I'm just not. It is always my first instinct to explain my story when I meet people, and also apologize for that, and apologize for not being who they expected, which, as I look back on, is just so wrong. I do not think that I should be apologizing for being adopted. I don't think I should be apologizing for not being what this person's judgment of me was. And now, kind of just to avoid the awkwardness, like, I will only talk about adoption if somebody happens to find my stuff and they bring it up, or if I feel like it, like if my name comes up and people ask if I'm married and I say, no, I was adopted. Or I'll bring it up if people are going to meet my parents and I'm like, hey, just so you know, my parents are white. And then it just kind of clicks. I think it's also easier now because the people that surround me are more mature and accepting of this identity that I have. They aren't asking these super intrusive questions. They aren't asking my entire life story. And usually the people who do ask those kinds of questions are people who don't really know me. I don't know if that's because the people who do know me know I'm just going to get snarky at a certain point and they don't want to get to that point, but it's always interesting bringing up adoption, feeling in between, and then embracing the in-betweenness, because that is something I really tried to avoid when I was younger. I don't think being in between and embracing that is very natural, and I have to work really hard at it. But I know that if you're in school and you want to fit in, like, you're not going to embrace the in-between part of you if you want to fit in. You're just going to try to adhere to one group, to one standard, to whatever. And that's, to me, like a mode of survival. I hope that as you explore your story more, as you explore your journey more, you will feel comfortable embracing all parts of you. But sometimes to survive and sometimes to make it through school and stuff, you have to just do what you have to do. And it sucks because people can be nasty sometimes. But overall, I'd really recommend trying this thing where you embrace being in between. And I think it's happening because I'm starting to see a lot more transracial adoptees, and I think that's because I'm already in this space, but I see them popping up on Instagram and on Twitter and on YouTube, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're all here, and they're all sharing their first post or whatever. It's really nice seeing all of these adoptees speaking up about their story, because I know that I'm on here sharing my story so other people don't feel alone. But I get pretty lonely because if I'm the only one doing it, then I'm like, all right, well, no one else is here, so I still feel alone, and hopefully I'm helping other people. But I'm hoping that as more transracial adoptees start speaking up and embracing their stories and sharing that and telling other transracial adoptees that they're not alone, then maybe more will just be willing to embrace this transracial adoptee identity. I know I would have, because then embracing the in-between wouldn't feel so scary. It wouldn't feel so lonely, because I knew that hundreds, thousands of others were also doing it. So yes, I hope that was kind of helpful. I know I'm in this weird mental, emotional state because of what's happening in the world, and maybe this wasn't, maybe I'll refilm it and do another part 2, but we'll see. If you were interested in more videos, you can always check out these 2 right here. But other than that, I will see you on Tuesday for the next episode.